Hi everyone, before watching the video, please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. After being forced to marry me, Victoria came to the hospital to visit me after my car accident and subsequent memory loss. She appeared utterly exasperated, her tone icy. What kind of stunt are you pulling to pressure me this time? I opened my mouth to apologize and took the opportunity to suggest a divorce. She froze for a moment, then hissed through gritted teeth. Divorce? Are you trying to drive me to my grave? When Victoria arrived at the hospital, I was already awake. She gave me a cursory glance before immediately averting her eyes, taking a seat on the sofa across the room. Don't use this tactic next time. The cost isn't worth the gain. Before she arrived, my friends had given me a brief overview of our relationship. I took a deep breath and spoke up. Victoria, I've lost my memory. She paused for a second, then her lips curled into a mocking smile. What kind of game are you playing now? Do you think I watched so many movies that I've turned stupid? She didn't believe me, which was expected. After all, I had heard that for the past few years, we had been as tense as sworn enemies. Putting myself in her shoes, I probably would have thought the exact same thing. I twitched the corner of my mouth, lacking the energy to argue. Standing nearby, the doctor couldn't bear to watch any longer and stepped in to state my medical condition clearly. Victoria's expression grew increasingly grim until she finally turned her head to look at me. How much have you forgotten? When our eyes met, I felt an inexplicable surge of guilt. I forgot that we were married, I said softly. She stared at me for several seconds, then burst into a taunting laugh. So, you mean you forgot how you took advantage of my downfall to force me into marriage? You forgot how you spent the last 2 years trying every possible way to make me love you? Arthur, you really are something. She seemed to be driven to the brink of madness. My friends had only mentioned that our relationship was poor. They never brought up the details. I hadn't realized that the me from 2 years later would actually resort to forcing someone's affection. I looked at her silently. She had sharp, striking features and thin lips pressed firmly together. Her face held a certain aggressive beauty. It was little wonder the future me had resorted to such desperate measures. Unfortunately for that version of me, I still have a shred of morality left. I waited a long time for her emotions to simmer down before speaking carefully. I'm sorry. I've heard about what happened between us. She let out a cold snort. What happened? You mean the part where you tormented me? She has a beautiful face, but her words are like venom. I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed through. I agreed to a divorce. After that, I will do my best to make it up to you. Whether you want cash or company shares, just say the word. I expected her to heave a sigh of relief. Instead, Victoria grew even more livid. Her expression darkened with disbelief as she hissed. Divorce? Are you trying to drive me to my grave? You decided when we married, and now you decide when we divorce? Keep dreaming. You won't escape me in this lifetime. Don't even think about liking someone else. I'm not giving up my spot for her. She spoke with such fierce aggression that her eyes began to redden. Panicked, I immediately tried to take it back. I was just speaking offhandedly. You don't need to take it so seriously. Victoria turned her face away, her voice stiff. Who said I didn't want to deal with this? I sighed helplessly and began to coax her. Fine. It's that I don't want to leave you. I'm just afraid that once my memory returns, I'll regret it and beg you for a remarriage. She shot me a fake, menacing glare. Dealing with women is exhausting. Getting into an accident is even worse. On the way home, she didn't say a single word to me. It was only through my friends that I pieced together the full story. To sum it up, it was love at first sight for me. I pursued her, but she rejected me. Then, her family went bankrupt. Rather than letting go, I blocked all her exits and forced her into marriage. No wonder she's been so cold to me for 2 years. What mess I've made. Why did I ever think following those forced love tropes was a good idea? Even worse, looking at her face now, I feel that same shameful urge to force her to stay. I shook my head violently to clear those unhealthy thoughts, determined to live a decent life from now on. Ever since her outburst at the hospital, Victoria has treated me like I'm invisible. Just thinking about sharing a bed with her tonight made my heart flutter in a way I'm embarrassed to admit. But one look at her icy expression and my heart turned to stone again. Forget it. Forced fruit is never sweet. I packed some things, preparing to head out, when I ran into Victoria. She had just stepped out of the shower. Her skin was glistening, and a stray water droplet slid down her neck, disappearing into the collar of her robe. Damn it, is this what the future me gets to enjoy? I swallowed hard and looked away quickly. I know you don't want to sleep together. I'll take the living room. I started to walk past her, but she blocked my path. She stood right in front of me, her warm breath surrounding me. Arthur, let me remind you, no sleeping in the living room. That was a rule you set. Her gaze was full of hidden meaning. I froze, then snapped back, trying to save some face. I set the rule, so I can break it. I think your mouth says no, but your heart says yes. She didn't flinch. Instead, she pressed closer, her voice laced with mockery. Because you once said that if I even tried to move to the living room, you'd pull every cent of investment from my family's business. Everything is ruined. The me from 2 years later really had a bag of dirty tricks. I felt so guilty I couldn't even look her in the eye, offering a stiff, hurried explanation. That rule was for you. It's fine if I sleep in the living room. I was about to bolt when she suddenly yanked me down onto the bed. I don't want you bringing this up again once you get your memory back and dragging me through the past, she snapped, turning her back to me and lying down. I hesitated for a few seconds before finally settling into the bed beside her. Too much had happened today. Mentally and physically exhausted, I fell asleep almost instantly. The next morning, I woke up in Victoria's arms. Back in the day, I used to leave comments under videos of beautiful women shouting "wife." And now, though the path was a bit twisted, the result was satisfying. Just as I was about to snuggle closer, Victoria's voice drifted down from above. Lost your memory, but you still haven't forgotten how to take advantage of me, have you? Caught red-handed, I sheepishly withdrew from her embrace. She watched my movements and let out a cold snort before sitting up. Looking at her back, I cursed myself internally. Didn't I used to be the type to yell at people's faces? Now I'm just mumbling in my head. After she caught me staring again, my embarrassment turned into a flash of irritation. You really don't know what's good for you. Victoria wasn't angry. She turned to look at me, her lips curling slightly. That's exactly how you used to scold me. Proof that you can't judge a book by its cover. Take me, for example. I fell for Victoria's face and ended up bringing home a living ancestor to serve. At the breakfast table, I suddenly remembered something. I looked at Victoria, who was sitting across from me in silence, and asked hesitantly, "Where is our marriage certificate? I like to see it." Victoria's hand froze mid-spoonful. She replied nonchalantly, "I tore it up. Why else? So you could be reminded of how you were forced into this every time you looked at it." I choked on my words, unable to say a thing, and just lower my head to eat. After breakfast, I scrambled to call my friend Event. To my surprise, Miles, the guy who used to hate every girl I stayed with, didn't take my side this time. Just live together for now, what else can you do? Honestly, you two are like a classic bickering couple. You clash, but you actually fit. Hearing that, I had to admit, it actually made sense. I responded with nothing but a string of ellipses. I was about to jump on a video call with him when a commotion erupted downstairs. I went down to find a girl with dyed blonde hair and a playful, flippant expression chatting with Victoria. Victoria, predictably, kept her dead fish poker face. When a newcomer spotted me, she gave a smirk and called out, "Hey, brother-in-law, I heard you got into a car wreck and are planning to divorce Victoria. What a coincidence. I happen to be a divorce lawyer. No need to go looking. I brought my services right to your doorstep." Seeing this, it was clear that the legal market is brutally competitive these days. Even lawyers have to do door-to-door sales now. I walked over, curious, and she introduced herself as Lisa. Compared to Victoria's icy demeanor, Lisa was the complete opposite. Witty, sharp-tongued, and incredibly smooth-talking. After listening to her talk for 10 minutes, I was almost tempted to sign up for a discounted divorce package on the spot. "Brother-in-law, our firm is running a promotion. Divorce this month and get 12% off. But since we're practically family, I'll give you two a 50% discount. Half price? Who wouldn't be tempted?" I asked. Our marriage certificate was torn up. Do we need to get a new one before we can divorce? Lisa looked at me with confusion, then glanced at Victoria. "Wasn't your marriage certificate put in the safe? The password is your wedding anniversary. She even said you were the one who forced her to lock it away." Another black mark blamed on me? I looked at Victoria in shock. A flicker of embarrassment crossed her eyes before she quickly regained her composure and answered nonchalantly, "You told me to hide it, but I didn't listen, so I just tore it up. A mysterious, knowing smile played on Lisa's lips. She looked at Victoria with a provocative glint in her eyes. Victoria shot her a look back, a clear warning in her gaze. Lisa stifled a laugh and turned back to explain. If the certificate is torn, you just need to get a replacement, and then you can proceed with a normal divorce. I nodded instinctively. Victoria looked genuinely displeased, her voice dripping with bitterness. Are you really going through with this? How many times have you mentioned divorce since you woke up? You weren't like this when you forced me to marry you. Not even 2 years, and you've already changed your mind? You sure move on fast, don't you? She wasn't just a little annoyed. She was beyond frustrated. Well, as the saying goes, the woman you chose yourself, you have to stomach even if it's bitter. I hurried to soothe her. Don't be upset. I was just asking. I didn't say I would actually do it. Upset? Who's upset? Victoria countered loudly, her cheeks flushing slightly pink. Lisa, watching the drama unfold and feeling like the fire needed a bit more fuel, cut in immediately. Looking at you two bicker every single day, you might as well just get it over with and divorce. I'll do it for 30% off, guaranteed fairness for both sides. Before she could finish, Victoria grabbed an orange and hurled it straight at her. Say one more word and I'll break your bones, believe it or not. Weighing her career against her life, Lisa deliberated for a few seconds before choosing survival and bolting for the door. Once she was gone, Victoria's anger seemed to dissipate, but she kept pacing back and forth in front of me, intentionally making noise. I couldn't wrap my head around her behavior, so I had to ask Miles again. He sent me a cold sweat emoji followed by a link to a forum post. Why is the cat I bought constantly clinging to me? The comments below were all over the place. Everything from go home, kiddo, to if people won't do it, the cat will. I read through them and was still as confused as ever. Miles couldn't take it anymore and sent me a 10-second voice note. Stop reading so many novels. You're all theory and no action. What's the point? While she's still playing nice, just go for it. When you get your memory back later, you can lock things down for good. My cheeks flushed. It felt like he was suggesting she actually wanted me to make a move. Clearly, I was still suffering from post-accident side effects. Victoria held a glass in her hand. 2 years of playing pretend, and you finally can't hold back anymore. She slowly closed the distance between us. Reflexively, I backed away until my spine hit the wall. There was nowhere left to run. Victoria leaned down, her lips inches from mine. Arthur, if you have the guts, then try it. It sounded like a threat, but for some reason, I heard it as an invitation. An invitation to act right now. After that display of intimidation, Victoria's mood visibly brightened. I, on the other hand, was racking my brain trying to figure out what she wanted. I had to ask Miles one more time. He was silent for a few seconds before dropping a completely non-sequitur response. Have you ever raised a female ghost before? If so, congratulations, you've got one now. I really wanted to swear at him. At this point, I didn't care if she was human or a ghost. All I wanted to know was whether that marriage certificate was actually torn up. Sometimes I couldn't tell if I was the one forcing her to stay home, or if she just naturally preferred staying cooped up inside. For several days, I couldn't find a single chance to look for the safe Lisa mentioned. The look in Victoria's eyes shifted from initial expectation to growing suspicion. Her gaze seemed to be screaming, "Are you ever going to make a move?" Clearly, I was the one who got into the car accident, but she was the one acting erratic. Why does it feel like she's the one with the broken brain now? After her 101st failed hint, Victoria finally hit her breaking point and decided to set foot out of the house. Lisa invited me out for drinks tonight. If you don't want me to go, that's fine. But don't you dare use those investments to threaten me. If you truly forbid it, I can stay home. Seeing that she was actually considering staying, I spoke up quickly. Of course you should go. I have been waiting days for her to leave. With my permission granted, Victoria's expression soured even further. She grabbed her car keys and stormed out in a huff. Once I was sure she was long gone, I immediately launched a full-scale search of the house. I looked everywhere and found nothing, until finally, only the wine cellar remained. With little hope, I stepped inside. To my surprise, I spotted the corner of a safe tucked away in a nook. I punched in our wedding anniversary, and with a soft click, the safe popped open. Inside lay only 2 marriage certificates, carefully protected in plastic covers. My heart hammered against my ribs in the cramped space. Since the day of the accident, every doubt and suspicion had finally been laid to rest. On that day, I had intended to find Victoria to lay all my cards on the table. But before I could reach home, the accident happened. In a haze of my fading consciousness back then, I had heard sobbing. A teardrop fell onto the back of my hand. I managed to open my eyes, just a sliver, and saw Victoria clutching my hand. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her gaze was no longer icy. It was filled with terror, anxiety, and an undeniable tenderness. In that moment, it was as if I had truly woken up. It seemed she actually likes me. I had never known how to handle emotions. Because I liked Victoria's face, I simply confessed. When I heard someone else was planning to use money to keep her, I struck first, forcing the marriage. But afterward, I had no idea how to treat her. I always assumed she loathed me, perhaps even hated me. But it seems that wasn't the case. Before I had blacked out, my mind was flooded with images of her staying by my side whenever I was sick. The unconscious glances and photos, the fragmented memories of the past 2 years. She must like me. I had planned to have a serious talk with her once I fully recovered. Who would have thought Victoria was such a master actress? Her public persona and her private self were worlds apart. She had clearly visited me at the hospital early on, yet she pretended she had just arrived. If she wants to act, then I'll play along in this grand drama. I'll act until she has no more exits. I'll act until her true feelings are exposed. I'll act until this woman finally opens her mouth and says it. I took the marriage certificates out and hid them in a different spot. Just as I finished, Lisa suddenly sent me a location pin. Brother-in-law, you two are moving way too slowly. I've decided to give things a little push. When you get here, don't go in right away. Give me a heads up first. I was curious about her methods. Once I arrived, I stood outside the door and sent her a message. Lisa didn't reply, but immediately her voice rang out from inside, intentionally loud enough for the whole world to hear. Victoria, I'm asking you straight. Do you actually like Arthur or not? Her approach was incredibly blunt, yet I felt my heart race nonetheless. Victoria was silent for a few seconds before letting out a cold laugh. Like him? How is even possible? I hate him more than anything. My heart sank straight to the bottom. Lisa, seemingly having anticipated this, spoke with a heavy dose of irony. Oh, please. Haven't you brainwashed yourself enough over the past 2 years? You say you hate him every single day, but isn't unrequited love actually miserable? What is it you really hate? Isn't your hate just because he doesn't love you enough? The other friends are chimed in as well. Yeah, honestly, Arthur seems pretty indifferent toward you. We've never even seen you on his social media feed. Maybe he's just bored of you by now. These words were like knives stabbing at her heart. Finally, Victoria reached her breaking point. You guys are full of it. How could he not love me? He's the one who forced me to marry him. He's the one who insisted on it. How could he possibly not love me? I suddenly remembered a crucial missing piece of the puzzle. When I first pursued Victoria and she asked why, I told her it was because I liked her face. When I proposed and she asked why, I said it was because I refused to lose. From beginning to end, I realized I had never once firmly told her that I loved her. I pushed the door open and walked in. Victoria had been drinking quite a bit, but her tolerance was high. Her eyes were still clear as she looked at me. She seemed surprised, but she couldn't hide the flicker of joy in her gaze. I took the initiative to speak. I was worried, so I asked Lisa for the address. She tried to feign indifference, even acting a bit annoyed. What's there to be worried about? I was obviously coming home. You don't need to keep me on such a tight leash. I could hear a hint of boasting in her tone. My arrival piqued the curiosity of her friends. Brother-in-law, we heard you're the one who chased Victoria, right? I nodded. The corners of Victoria's mouth quirked up. Victoria said you insisted on the marriage. Is that true, too? I nodded again. Internally, I was fuming. Just how much had she been slandering my reputation out here? I shot her a look. She looked a bit guilty and avoided my eyes. Everyone was waiting for my answer. I took a deep breath and spoke with total candor. That's right. I forced her into it. If I had it my way, I'd keep her locked at home for the rest of her life. The room collectively gasped. Victoria did too. The difference was that while everyone else was terrified, she looked delighted. Lisa, standing nearby, stifled a laugh, choosing not to expose our little secret. Victoria checked her watch, threw on her coat, and stood up, signaling for me to follow. I just got here, I said. Why don't we stay a bit longer? She let out a snort. In your dreams. It's 9:40 p.m. It takes exactly 18 minutes to drive home from here. If we're even 2 minutes late, who knows what excuse you'll use to punish me. I was so annoyed I almost laughed. It turns out that every single rumor from the last 2 years was started by her. She shot me a look telling me to hurry up, so I stood up and said goodbye to everyone. She walked ahead, but was clearly, intentionally slowing her pace for me. I suddenly felt like teasing her. Waiting for me to walk with you. Did I force you to do that too? Victoria's body stiffened. Having been called out on her bluff, she grew flustered, and her pace quickened instantly. Watching that frantic, annoyed silhouette made me find her even more amusing. By the time I caught up to her, however, she had an uninvited guest by her side. I recognized him, a guy who had pursued my wife in the past, but was rejected. After finding out I liked her, he had gone out of his way to cause trouble for her. I didn't catch the beginning of their conversation, but they were in a standoff, and both looked miserable. As I hurried over, I caught him pointing a finger and sneering at her. Aren't you just a cage canary? You're living off your looks, but sooner or later, Arthur is going to kick you to the curb. To my surprise, Victoria didn't get angry. Instead, she burst out laughing. With a face like yours, you definitely couldn't pull off that lifestyle. My husband provides for me. What business is it of yours? If she had a tail, it would have been wagging proudly in the air right then. The guy was speechless, so he pivoted his attack toward me. Arthur, you'd better do your homework. Everyone knows the Sterling family is rising to the top now. They're practically about to overtake your family. Be careful you don't end up being the one bled dry, raising a viper in your bosom without even knowing it. Victoria stood in the shadows, her eyes growing dark and unreadable. I stepped forward, wrapped my arm firmly around her waist, and shot back coldly. She's my wife. I provide for her. What business is it of yours? For the first time, Victoria couldn't help herself. Her lips curled into a broad, unmistakable smile. I pulled her away, and she followed me obediently to the car, clearly still savoring the words I had just said. I frowned, looking at her with a serious expression. That guy insulted you right to your face like that, and you didn't even know how to react. Victoria shrugged, resting her chin on her hand, her voice carrying a hint of a coquettish whine. Well, what was I supposed to do? He wasn't exactly wrong. I really am a cage canary. When we got married, you transferred all your shares to me. Now, I'm no different from a bird in a cage. Once we got home, I decided it was time to settle the score. I rolled up my sleeves and poured a glass of cold water to soothe my throat. Victoria's eyes followed my every move, her gaze hazy and unreadable. I leaned my hands on the table, staring her down as I interrogated her. Victoria, aren't you going to explain yourself? When did I ever force you? Without changing her expression, she casually spun another lie. Before you lost your memory, you were very wicked. She's forgotten that I'm only pretending to have amnesia, I thought. Racking my brain for strategy, I finally came up with a bluff. Don't lie to me. I lost my memory, not my common sense. I asked Miles, and he said you were perfectly free, that I never controlled you. The ceiling lights cast deep shadows across Victoria's face. For some reason, those words struck a nerve. Her brow furrowed, and her voice took on a sharp, almost obsessive edge. Then why didn't you control me? I froze, caught off guard. Victoria watched every flicker of emotion on my face intently. Finally, she let out a soft sigh, appearing somewhat regretful. Never mind. A heavy silence fell between us. As I stepped toward her to walk past, she assumed I was heading to my room and moved to clear the way. But I stopped suddenly, barely an arm's length from her. I reached out, wrapped my arm around her waist, and pulled her close, forcing her to look up at me. Because of this sudden movement, a flash of panic flared in her eyes, only to be quickly replaced by a joy that bordered on the pathological. I looked straight into her eyes. Victoria, I feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick here. Everyone thinks I'm forcing you, but in reality, I haven't done anything at all. That's not fair. I felt something was off. It shouldn't be like this. This wasn't the behavior of that female ghost Miles described. Thinking back, a specific memory suddenly popped into my head. During our first month of marriage, around 2 a.m. one night, Victoria had come home tipsy. I was furious, and we had a massive blowout. By the end of the argument, she had provoked me. Arthur, if you want me in your sight at all times, then have the guts to install cameras all over the house. I never could resist a dare. The very next day, I actually installed cameras in every corner of the house. But it didn't take long for me to regret it. Our marriage hadn't started on the best terms, and I truly wanted us to find a healthier way to live together after that. So, I had never actually opened the camera app to watch the footage. Realizing this, a chill suddenly ran down my spine. It turned out that Victoria had been intentional from the very start. I opened the monitoring software and checked the statistics. It showed that one visitor had viewed the feeds over 10,000 times in the past 2 years. The most recent login was exactly 1 minute ago. I froze. The camera tucked into the upper left corner of the ceiling felt like it was staring directly at me. I cursed under my breath. If this woman doesn't go and compete for an Oscar, it would be a total waste of talent. The more I thought about it, the more annoyed I became. Finally, I came up with a plan. I pulled up a few clips of provocative female streamers from the short video folder Miles had saved and pointed my phone screen directly at the camera. I even turned the volume up to the maximum. Before the first video could even finish, a notification popped up on my screen. Victoria was requesting a video call. I pretended not to see it and kept watching nonchalantly. She called more than a dozen times in a row. Finally, I pressed accept. Her voice came through the phone, sounding as if she were speaking through gritted teeth. "Arthur, what on earth are you doing?" Even through the phone, I could feel her fury. I lied with a straight face. "I was just sleeping." Sleeping. Victoria was so incensed she let out a dry laugh. "Sleeping? While watching half-naked streamers? Do you really like them that much?" I feigned surprise, scanning the room before finally landing my gaze directly on the camera. "You're the one stalking me, aren't you, Victoria?" She laughed right into my ear, her tone dark and ominous. "This was originally the tool you used to monitor me, wasn't it?" Internally, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Did she really take me for a fool? Based on what I knew of myself, I was certain I had never once opened those feeds. A laugh came from the other end, a sound that was clearly mocking yet sent shivers down my spine. "That's right. So why didn't you watch?" There was again that same question. I gripped the phone tightly, tilting my head up as if looking her directly in the eye through the lens. Victoria paused and began to ramble, seemingly using the moment to vent her frustration. That day, she had clearly been upset about something. She asked me why several times, and I had no idea how to answer. Eventually, she hung up. That night, she posted several melancholic, moody songs to her social media feed. Some spiteful person commented below, "Finally got kicked to the curb by your master? Or has your official position been challenged by someone else?" Normally, Victoria would have snapped back at every single one of them. But today, she chose a rare, heavy silence. I went ahead and hit the like button. We had played this game long enough. It was time to pull in the net. That night, I attended a party filled with childhood friends. I asked Miles to snap a photo of me. He handed me the camera back, joking, "Not gonna lie, you and Bianca actually look pretty good together." Looking back, I realized I used a ship to myself. The way the photo was framed, the dozen-centimeter gap between Bianca and me made it look like we were sitting right against each other. Before I could say anything, Bianca hurriedly waved her hands in denial. I gave a faint smile and handed the phone back to Miles. "Do me a favor, post this to your social media, but make it so only Victoria can see it." Bianca nearly choked. "Arthur, what did I ever do to you? Why are you trying to get me killed?" I glanced at her and promised her a brand new luxury sports car. She went silent instantly. Miles looked indignant and was about to protest, but I anticipated him. "That watch you like? Someone will deliver it to your house tomorrow." Miles was like lightning, posting the status immediately. I nodded in satisfaction. A few hours later, I intentionally asked Bianca to drive me home. At the door, I invited her in, but she flatly refused. "No thanks. If I go in there, I might not make it back out alive." I let out a helpless laugh. The house was dark, but I knew Victoria was home. The dim moonlight filtered into the living room, revealing the silhouette of someone sitting on the sofa. I flipped the switch. The sudden glare made her wince, squinting as she looked up at me. I finally got a clear look at her face, along with a pair of scissors and a shattered object on the coffee table. I walked over, pretending to be nonchalant, and noticed her phone screen was smashed to bits. There was fresh blood on her palm. "Your hand is bleeding." I grabbed the first aid kit to tend to her wound. She was unusually obedient, offering no resistance. In a vast, quiet house, There's only the sound of our breathing and heartbeats. As I bandage her hand, I ask casually, "How did your phone end up like this?" Victoria's gaze was fixed intensely on me, a storm of emotions swirling in her eyes. She didn't answer my question. Instead, she suddenly blurted out, "You never lost your memory." My heart skipped a beat. I feigned composure and admitted it without hesitation. She let out a dry, hollow laugh. My palms began to break out in a cold sweat. I braced myself, locking eyes with her. "That's right," Victoria finally squeezed out, each word heavy as lead. "You purposely let that girl drive you home, didn't you?" My palms were soaked with sweat. I admit it. Our eyes locked for several seconds before Victoria suddenly burst into laughter. It was a shaky laugh that vibrated from her chest, so intense that the corners of her eyes turned red. "Arthur, you find this gratifying, don't you?" I frowned. Gratifying? In what way? The smile on her lips vanished instantly, replaced by words choked with accusation. "Gratifying that I clearly fell in love with you a long time ago, yet I stubbornly refused to admit it. Gratifying that for the last 2 years, I wasn't angry because you forced me into marriage. I was angry because after the wedding, you didn't do a thing. Gratifying that when I heard about your accident, the first thing I thought was, if he dies, I'm going with him. Even as a ghost, I wouldn't let you go." Her eyes were bloodshot and brimming with tears. She gripped the scissors in her hand, taking step after step to corner me. I looked her straight in the eye and refused to back down. "Victoria, I'm giving you one last chance to rephrase your words." She froze, standing just inches from me. A tear traced a slow path down her cheek. She hesitated, struggling for a few seconds, before finally dropping the scissors. She leaned her weight against my arm and reached out for me, her voice trembling in a plea. "Arthur, don't leave me." After our unpleasant argument that day, I had reflected for a long time. I finally understood why Victoria had lost control that night, 1 month after our wedding. It turned out she had seen me out at dinner with Bianca. When I went to Bianca to confirm this, she couldn't stop complaining. "Don't even bring it up." The very next day, I got a warning from Victoria. "If it weren't for your sake, I honestly think she would have beaten me half to death." As the pieces fell into place, I finally saw the truth behind the last 2 years. Because I had forced her into the marriage, I had always felt guilty, assuming she didn't like me. Consequently, I tried to restrain myself and keep my distance. But Victoria misunderstood that restraint as a sign that I didn't love her. I was too proud to back down and comfort her. She was too shy to admit her feelings. Misunderstandings piled up, and our path grew more and more crooked. Provocation had always worked on me, and, clearly, it worked on Victoria too. That's why I intentionally let her see that photo and let her witness Bianca driving me home. The results were better than expected. So good that she was now pouring everything out, essentially laying herself bare before me. Victoria's face was still stained with tears, her eyes flickering with a mix of light and shadow. Feeling a pang of bittersweetness, I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her waist. Her body trembled slightly as she buried her face in my chest, her voice thick with emotion. "Don't you have anything you want to ask me?" Victoria said nothing more, only hugging me tighter before finally shaking her head with all her might. I pulled back slightly from her embrace to look into her eyes with absolute seriousness. "But I have something to say." She nervously gripped my hand, searching for a shred of security. I spoke slowly, making every word clear. "I love you." I should have said this the moment I confessed my feelings and proposed to you. A burst of overwhelming joy erupted in Victoria's eyes. She showered my face with kisses, repeating over and over, "I love you, I love you." She couldn't stop. Her hands pinned my wrists, forcing me to repeat her words like a ritual. "Say you were captivated by my beauty." "I was captivated by your beauty." "Say you took me by force." "I took you by force." "Say you love me." "I love you." She leaned in, softly kissing the corner of my eye. Finally, exhausted by the emotional release, she fell fast asleep in my arms. The sun rose, just as it always does. But we at long last were truly in love.